All right, let's check our frame.
We're live.
We are live. And how exciting. I mean, we're all the way in Mile High country, folks. So come on in.
Yeah.
We're just going to give a moment for any audience that's making their way into the room to come on in.
And don't forget to post your questions.
That's right. We've got the chat on the side. So, and even afterwards, if you want to submit questions after this video gets posted and we're no longer live, we'll be watching. So feel free to come on in and leave us your thoughts. But we'll be getting started in maybe a few minutes here.
Okay.
Just in case people are wondering, we're actually coming to you from Denver right now at the Sexual Health Alliance Sexological Conference. This is an annual gathering. This is the second time they've done it?
I believe so. It's the first time I'm attending.
Yeah, my first one too. So this is a gathering of some of the brightest minds and professional folks working in sex, working in sex therapy, sex education, sex information, just general sex influencer folks. So I'm going to bring us a little bit more here. There we go, right? I want to be a little more balanced and have you in it too. But yeah. I mean, we'll see how our audience shows up today. I don't know. Thursday at 8 p.m. might be.
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. in California. Hey, all my West Coasters.
It's 5 p.m. in California. There is one person here. Feel free to say hello.
Where are you
tuning in?
Tuning in from? Dialing. I mean, that's old
It's
school.
our talk show. It's
Nobody's
our talk show.
Dialing anymore.
Where are you dialing in from? Let us know. I mean, feel free to make friends in the chat as well. We're about 4 minutes out from starting this conversation. If you did see the promo, you know that we're getting into a talk about menopause today. We'll do an official introduction once we get there, but this is a hot topic, and it happens to be Menopause Awareness Month.
It is indeed. And we need to be aware.
We all need to be aware, which is why this is being hosted today for all of you. Oh, yay. Hello. Oh, thank you, Christopher from Philadelphia. Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us on a Thursday evening.
Yeah. I hope we're not keeping you from any prime programming or anything. I'd say this is prime programming.
I definitely much more relevant than anything.
Than anything else you're going to find, and much more positive. We promise you'll get a lot of positivity out of this as well. So you can alert people on your social media that we're going live as well. Feel free. Share the promotion of it as well. It's one of those high altitude locations.
Yes,
so you're going to have to forgive us if we're slurring or a little bit.
A little foggy, we start to fade.
Yeah, a little foggy, a little out of it. We've been doing as much water intake as possible.
Already.
I know, you've got yours with you, right? I had a very, very, very big chug-a-thon before coming in here. So, someone else just joined us. Come on in.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome, and you can have all your questions ready. I've got a slew of them with me. Don't worry if you just want to kick back and let the conversation wash over you, then so be it. You're in good hands today. But we're going to wait till the mark. So we're exactly 3 minutes out, folks. I know, it's tempting to start right now, right? We should have little waiting room music for you, like little elevator tunes. Yeah.
Well, you're the entertainer.
Oh, don't even ask me to start with that.
I guess we both are in our own way.
We so are, and it's very tempting to immediately go into an a cappella, singing.
That I would not do.
But I'm not about to do that. As tempting as it is to host my own a cappella Super Bowl halftime show, we're not doing it. Hello, got it going. Hello. Yes, you were just in my other stream earlier today. So nice to see you in this one as well. Well, I hope that you're ready for quite an investigative conversation. We do have an expert with us. Oh, some hearts are coming up. I love that.
This is good for your heart,
This is. It so is. I think sharing information generally is.
But physically, too, it will be good.
It'll be good for your heart. I think you're going to enjoy it. And I had a lot of you write to me on Instagram saying that you were very excited about this conversation, saying that you are it's so much gratitude for how necessary this is. And obviously with the title, Breaking the Taboo, we're going to address just how taboo talking about this is. So it's one of those, hopefully sparking more folks to host these conversations moments, right? That's the idea here.
And the conversation is getting louder, so that's really important.
Yeah, you would know. You would know because you've been involved in a lot of these, and you get a lot of invites to these events, so you know about the magnitude of people really taking to this conversation.
Yes, very important. And the 50% of the population, I think maybe even more, are female or vulva owners, as we say in our world.
Yes.
And so we need to know about it.
Yeah.
Really, really important. We're all going to go through it.
But also, any of you that are not a vulva owner, you can still be a support to these people in your life, right? So I think there's just value across the boards, and maybe you will learn something that you didn't know, and maybe there's a little more compassion in your next interaction with someone going through this right now or having curiosities about it. Maybe you can direct someone to this episode further down the line when they're looking for information.
Exactly.
I would say we are just about ready to kick it off. And you know what? I won't make you sit in the waiting room any longer, folks. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This is, of course, me, Laura Desiree, and the Laura Desiree YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've fed content to this. So when my dear friend Karen said we should do something while we're both at this conference in Denver, I thought, perfect. Let's do a YouTube Live. So for all of you tuning in and joining us, this is our Breaking the Taboo, Why We Need to Talk About Menopause conversation. And I mentioned her just a second ago. Maybe you've done your own little deep dive into who this individual is. This is Karen Bigman, who's a menopause coach and certified sex educator. I would love your introduction for these people.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having this and for hosting this. And I know that your audience is a little younger and skews younger. And so this information, while it's important for everybody, it's really important for those of you who don't know anything about it to start to educate yourselves earlier. So I'm Karen Bigman. I am, in addition to being a menopause coach and a sex educator, a podcast host of the podcast Taboo to Truth Unapologetic Conversations about Sexuality in Midlife. And of course, menopause plays a big role in that certainly for all of us. I started my journey my journey obviously started a little earlier, about 10 years ago. I started my sexual awakening when I got divorced and started to have physical challenges that were baffling to me, and trying to just figure out what they were and to really be heard and to learn what the treatments were, what the solutions were, and finding my way really helped me open up about talking about sex and sexuality. Fast forward 10 years, and I sort of was finding myself again as I was pushing 60, and I started to hear sort of rumblings around menopause and sexuality. But what I found was that there was a ton of shame around it. And people either don't want to talk about it. I mean, I had my own sister make me swear that I would not bring it up at a family event because it was such a taboo subject. And so, of course, that was all the more reason for me to educate myself more and make it louder. And that's when I launched the podcast last summer to really help get the word out, to teach people that not only about what these different things are that are going on in our bodies and in our lives, but to be able to talk about it with each other. And that's really one of the missions that I have, is to get women, or people in general, but women, feeling safe enough that we can really have these conversations with each other.
That's exactly it, right? We can do our independent research, we can talk to our doctors, but there is this missing opportunity in having the conversation with each other.
Yes.
So are you saying that you went into this stage of life known as menopause, or perhaps even perimenopause, with virtually no information? What did you know?
I probably was. It wasn't that I knew that much, but my doctor had put me on hormone therapy back when nobody's doctor was putting them on hormone therapy, and we can get to that in a minute. And so I was not, I did not suffer as much, but when I learned how many people were suffering because of the lack of information and all this misinformation around hormone therapy, that's when I said, well, this doesn't have to be. I didn't have this problem.
Yeah.
So we need to make it make it louder. And I just want to preface the whole conversation by saying that I am not a licensed medical provider and that I've done a lot of research and I'm certified as a coach. I do encourage all of you, should you find something interesting here that you want to dig deeper, definitely you want to speak to a licensed medical provider about any of this.
That's our disclaimer up front to everyone, but there's still so much information that we are going to get to. And I have questions collected from many of them from the inbox on my Instagram, many of them from conversations I've been having over the last year or so with others that want answers to this. So Karen, we're going to start with like an absolute basic. Many of us know menopause is that moment later in life that things start to change. But what is happening during menopause? What is it?
So menopause is actually the moment that you have gone 12 months without your period. So if you have not had your period for 11 months and 15 days, and on day 16 you get your period, clock starts all over again. Now, that being said, the period leading up to that 12 months without your period is called perimenopause. And then some doctors, consider anything after that moment post-menopause or menopause. But generally, we call it now the menopause transition because it really is a transition. And I heard an interesting analogy yesterday where someone said it's the reverse of puberty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The reverse of puberty. I don't know if I like that as an analogy for it. I don't know. I feel like there is wisdom that we get in puberty. So the idea of a reverse, I say, but wait, no, there's so much to learn. Biologically. Okay. Biologically. Fair. Biologically.
Right.
And now perimenopause. Okay. This is something that if you are in my age bracket, I'm 35. If you're in this age bracket, guess what? We need to get familiar with perimenopause. It's the step before menopause. What happens at this time? Are there specific markers that we can look for or expect in this part of the journey?
So menopause, in the United States, the average age of menopause, that's that moment when you haven't been 12 months with the period, is 51. In the rest of the world, it's 49. And for women of color, it's actually even younger. But let's say on average, around 51, you will stop having your period. Up until then, you're losing eggs and your hormones are fluctuating wildly. You might start with getting very erratic periods, very heavy periods, very light periods. You might skip a period. There might be long times between it. So things start to fluctuate and change. That's like usually one of the first markers. That is provided you're not somebody who has had erratic periods your whole life. And I don't know how to talk to that. So I'll let you talk to your doctors about that. Yeah. But let's assume that you're like I was. And then what starts to happen, often the first few symptoms, the ones that we kind of know about or hear about are these hot flashes, your temperature gauge. Like I know I would go in a warm room and it was like, all of a sudden I had to rip all my clothes off. It wasn't like I could just sort of slowly gauge the temperature of the room. Night sweats that some people say they soak through their sheets, that it wakes them up. Insomnia, mood swings, like sudden mood swings, Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde.
I mean, that's kind of my preset as is. It's quite unpredictable at times. I can only imagine what this chapter is going to be like.
So that being said, then that's often the case is we don't always distinguish. I know I had a symptom that now I know was most likely perimenopause, but heart palpitations. I went for a full-on cardiac workup to make sure there was nothing wrong. And P.S. Oprah, who had, the best doctors in the world, went to 5 cardiologists, all telling her they didn't know what was wrong with her. And it was her her trainer who said, I think you might be in menopause.
So that was the symptom that she pursued with her doctor. Yes. Wow. See, it's these mysterious ailments.
Yeah.
This is what we're trying to myth bust here, is like, we've definitely all heard about the hot flashes. And also, how long does a hot flash last?
It depends on who you are.
It sounds so uncomfortable.
It depends on the person. It depends, for me, because I went on hormone therapy early. I was fortunate enough that, I'll get one here and there, but it's never like that. I remember sitting with a girlfriend of mine who literally I watched her like just start to profusely sweat out of the blue and like start to take off all, her sweater and whatever. But then there's also things like hair loss, dry vagina, headaches, things that are sort of you may not, well, maybe the dry vagina you would, but your, headaches and things like that, you might not really think it's menopause. But I know like one of my family members all of a sudden got like these just terrible headaches, migraines and come on, things like that. And then there are things that they are now learning are also often related to menopause, like frozen shoulder, brain fog for sure, forgetfulness.
Frozen shoulder. Why is that stepping in here? Why is that happening?
So where they used to believe that menopause was strictly a change in the reproductive organs, they now know that most of the systems in your body have estrogen receptors. So when you are going through menopause, you're getting fewer and fewer eggs. And I'm not going to go into the systemic what's happening, but basically your hormones are starting to fluctuate wildly and then get depleted. And estrogen is critical to many systems in our body. Progesterone helps with sleep, with a lot of other things, and testosterone as well. All of these help us be more alert, be stronger, be physically feel better. And so when you don't have these things, you don't know. And there's actually no specific test to say you are in menopause and that's what's causing this. So I
had a question about that. There is no test?
There is one apparently that I just read about actually in this book, which I'm going to recommend to any of you who are interested. The New Menopause by Mary Claire Haber, who's it's just a very well written and very simplified way of understanding it. But there may be one test that's supposedly very expensive and that might be able to, but because your hormones are fluctuating so wildly, there's no way to say, okay, you're at a proper level. So what good doctors or doctors who are in the know, who are menopause aware, will do is they'll treat the symptoms. And which is what happened with me. It's like I was getting these hot sweats. I wasn't, hot flashes. I wasn't sleeping. And my doctor's like, I was in my late 40s. She said, this is probably what it is. Let's try, minimal amount of hormone therapy and see what happens. And sure enough, that, started to feel better.
Yeah. And Matt, automatically, I want to go to the question of, well, what are the options for easing through that? And we'll get to that because, yes, you've heard us say hormone therapy a couple times now. And I know that is such a hot topic for many of you, with holding conversations around menopause. But what I'd like to know is there any preparation that a younger woman can do in the lead up years to even perimenopause, let's say, to better equip the body to have an easier go through this transition? Are there lifestyle changes? Are there, certain routines we can bring in that might ease some of these symptoms, if any?
Well, a healthy body is going to theoretically mean healthier, an easier menopause, but not necessarily. That being said, what becomes very important is, your diet, eating lots of protein, not worrying about, worrying about obesity. Definitely that contributes to a lot of problems, but being very, very skinny and constantly worrying about, like the culture that I was brought up in, and many women are, it's like, do all the aerobic activity you can to lose all the weight and be the skinniest you can. What you need to be doing is, now I'm reading it everywhere, like lift heavy weights, be strong and work on that, work on, your balance. One of the symptoms of menopause is bone loss and muscle mass loss. And those contribute to frailty and falls and broken hips. Often, something like 50% of women end up dying from them, from the complications of a broken hip. So you want to keep your bones strong. You want to, again, they're kind of ironic because eating healthy, that's an easy one.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Avoiding alcohol, avoiding things like that. Sleep, they say, getting a good night's sleep. Well, I have got to confess, I have not had a good night's sleep in many, many years.
And we're not having it here in Denver. We're not having it here in the high altitude. No.
But yeah, getting as much sleep as you can that your body needs. It was diet, exercise, sleep, and and stress. Reducing stress. And we hear a lot about mindfulness and meditation, yoga, whatever it is, that even if you can just reduce your stress a little bit for a little bit part of your day, anything like that will contribute. So that's the starting point for all of us.
Exactly. And these are a lot of things that most people that are looking for their most optimum health already know. Right. So guess what? You've heard it from a menopause coach herself now, that these are wonderful ways of equipping the body for a smoother transition at this moment in life. I want to have some fun with you and talk about the myth around how much your sex drive changes.
Oh, I
right?
The sex educator completely forgets to mention the
Right?
ones that are.
Well, this I feel is such like an isolated part of it that I really want to drop a spotlight on, because we've been told the only thing that women that are so far from it know is, well, everything dries up. You're not a great bedmate anymore. Your desire changes, and a lot of your sexual archetype might even be in danger of what you've established for yourself. All of this is in flux now. So what's the reality about what to expect with changing desires and sexual function?
So I'm going to first fast forward to being 61 and having the best sex of my life. Yes. So it is possible. Okay. Now I am single, so it's a little different than if you've been in a long relationship, but I've got remedies for that too. Not on this podcast, not on this, but so, okay. So some of what happens is you may lose your libido, suffer from anorgasmia, which is difficulty with orgasm, because of the mood changes, the depression. I just saw another statistic recently that basically since the scare about hormone replacement therapy, the prescriptions for antidepressants to women have gone up exponentially, and our quality of life has gone down exponentially. So these things happen, and all that, you add that to sleeplessness, night sweats, hot flashes, which, by the way, I've been known to have a hot flash during sex, which is really an interesting.
I mean, that could just be
excuse me, honey.
Yeah, but it could look like enthusiasm. It could look like this is just really blowing my mind. My whole body broke out into a sweat, right? Exactly. Like I don't know if that's really the worst, unless it is quite uncomfortable. I don't know yet.
But whatever, you learn to work with it. So yes, it can be debilitating. It can be difficult. It can be helped by certain treatments, and it can be things that you need to work on. There's a lot of things that can contribute to. Loss of libido or loss of interest in your partner, and you want to look at everything. But yes, it is a myth that we just all of us, let's put it this way, lose our interest in sex, and that we're no longer sexual. And I think there's actually been some research done recently by Lisa Mosconi out of, I don't know, she's a neuroscientist that is a brain researcher on Alzheimer's, and did these brain scans. And then she interviewed many women who've been through menopause. And there is something about being over 60 that we have more of a, like, we don't give a fuck. Or we do give fucks, but not a fuck.
No, this is what I've heard, right? I did, I'm in my own pursuit for sex education certification right now. And I did do a later in life sex course where menopause was a little focus in there. And what the lecturer said was, one of the great bonuses of entering this stage of life is that you don't have to worry about unwanted pregnancies. So that fear and that stress is taken out of it. You know yourself far better than you do when you're 20 years old. So you know what brings you pleasure. You're a lot more comfortable having those conversations. And so a 20-year-old thinking about, oh goodness, when I get to my mid-50s or 60s and I need to ask for lube, how am I going to do that? By the time you get there, you're not afraid to talk about lube.
Right. Certainly I'm not. But
right.
If you haven't been having those conversations, they can be difficult to have.
Right.
But that being said, there are women that I meet often that say they've given up, that they don't want sex anymore, and that they're not interested. And I love my partner, but we just don't have sex anymore. Or I don't, we sleep in separate bedrooms, and that's just our life, and that's the way it's been since I've gone through this. And to that I say, your sexual health is part of your overall health. And so if your symptoms of menopause or midlife or whatever the crises that are that you are taking sex out of your life, you need to find a way to put it back in, because it's just as important as every part of your overall health. And I will add that, and we'll get to the treatments for menopause too, but proper treatment for menopause and sort of sex contributes to better cardiovascular health, better your immune system. Putting all those happy hormones and like make you feel better and help with your immune system, your muscles, your bone health. All these things are getting better because you're having sex. Now, there are challenges, like back problems, and sometimes there's knee problems, whatever, but it's really important not to write it off. And it gives you a sense of I don't say power, is not the right word, but like confidence and self-esteem, knowing that you can still be a sexual being even though you're at a certain age.
Yes, and we were talking about this today, actually, the importance of having other versions of pleasure and other ways of conjuring pleasure in your life. We get very perhaps routine or very devoted to a certain kind of sexual activity, especially if we're in long partnerships and maybe we aren't that sexually open enough to talk about it. And so if that starts to go, or if something's in the way of that routine, how are you supposed to feel anything other than something's wrong with us, something's wrong with me? And so we can't urge it enough to please find other ways of conjuring pleasure and explore other sensations, because there are so many. And as we age and as we grow up and as we garner new experiences, there are new signals inside of us that begin to grow and say, hey, this is pleasurable. Ooh, I like this. Right. Like now that I'm growing my hair out, I like having my hair brushed. Okay. Like that's just one example. When I had the short hair, scalp massages weren't my thing. Now it's growing out and I'm finding pleasure in it. So, it's this constant education that you need to be investigating within yourself. Right. I want to talk, I don't want to enter. I think you might be still wrapping up a sentence here.
No, I'm not. Please. I'm not wrapping up a sentence. I think all of this is very important, but I want to go back for a minute to treatments, because part of what the hormonal changes that are contributing to lack of libido, anorgasmia, dry vagina, pain with sex, things like that, can be treated. And this brings us back to with hormone therapy.
Yes.
And I know many women who have gone on hormone therapy, and aside from they're like, oh my God, I've got my life back, all of a sudden their interest changes, how they feel physically, the dryness starts to subside, and things start to feel better, and so they want to have more sex.
Of course.
And sometimes it's not with their long-term partner, though. Just be aware.
Be aware. It might launch this new chapter in your life where you're just hot to trot.
Exactly.
To which I applaud you. Okay, so looking at hormone therapy specifically for the treatment of menopause, what is happening in that collision of those two things, the body going through menopause and the hormone therapy? What are we treating and what's happening?
So when you're basically hormone and it is formerly known as hormone replacement therapy. In this book, she tries to Dr. Haver talks about menopause hormone therapy, because there's hormone therapy for thyroid, there's hormone therapy for other things. So when we refer to HRT, typically people are talking about menopause hormone therapy. Basically, you are replacing what is depleted in your body.
What's starting to,
And there is actually, so there's the argument about that's based on a study that was done many years ago in 2002, I believe, from the world. It was called the Women's Health Initiative, that linked hormone therapy to breast cancer, and that has now been debunked. And there's plenty of research, and I can read you a couple of statements afterwards that now say it is actually the go-to treatment. Even the FDA is recommending it for certain symptoms of menopause. That being said, there's typically you're treated with estrogen and progesterone. You also lose testosterone, which is one, for me, that was critical. Which really contributes to libido and ability to have an orgasm. In addition to helping with your muscle mass and your heart health and your bone health and all these other things that, so estrogen and progesterone are medicines that you can get, or I don't want to say drugs, but they are drugs that you can get prescribed by your doctor that are covered by insurance, typically, not always. Testosterone, unfortunately, is not is off-label for women, and there's a lot of story behind that. I have an episode about it. You can listen to it. But basically, we need like maybe a tenth or less of what a man needs, but we still need it. We still need it. So don't go taking your boyfriend's or your husband's testosterone. But if you're feeling that you might be testosterone deficient, then you do want to look into getting a proper prescription for it, because you can get it. And I'm talking about the United States here. So if any of you are dialing in from another country, I don't know your rules, but I know Australia has a testosterone patch for women, and that is the only country in the world that has it.
Like a nicotine patch.
Well, the estrogen that I get delivered is delivered by a patch as well. So it's just a little, like a sticker I put it between your navel and your vulva, and I change it twice a week. And depending on the dose that you get, there are different delivery methods.
So how long are you on the hormone therapy? Is it just, say, the first year of menopause? Is it something you do for the rest of your life? Like, these are my unknowns. How long are you going to be on it?
Right. So what they now say, used to be they said the smallest amount for the shortest amount of time. They now say you can be on it for the rest of your life.
Wow.
After, when you are within 10 years of menopause. So if you went through menopause and you were not on hormone therapy and you're under 60, technically, again, under medical supervision, you can still go on hormone therapy. If you are beyond those parameters, you are still a potential candidate for it, but the risks do increase of blood clots and heart things. And so it depends on how bad your symptoms are. Now, if you've been on it, when you're postmenopausal, which someone like me, I don't know when I actually went through it because I've been on hormone therapy. Postmenopausal women, the symptoms, apparently the hot flashes and night sweats, get even worse.
What?
So you want to,
Karen, you're scaring me now.
So you want to, if you're on hormone therapy, you want to stay on it. And those symptoms contribute to cardiovascular disease.
Wow.
And so it's not so simple as I'm going to just endure this as long as it lasts and then it'll go away and I'll get older and all this will stop. You may be really lucky and it will. You may not be terribly symptomatic, but chances are you'll have something. And it is really protective. And there's actually a whole school of thought in the medical community now that hormone therapy should be a preventative medication for women as they age.
Look, if we can accept preventative Botox now.
Exactly. We put Botox in our bodies. We put alcohol in our bodies. We put all sorts of things in our bodies. The treatment that they give now typically is called bioidentical. Bioidentical means it mimics your body.
Yeah.
It is derived from natural sources. And by the way, that term natural is not regulated. So anyone can say
curious.
the word natural. But it is derived from, as I understand it, like yams and soys and whatever. But then they process it in a lab and they put it together in a format like a patch or a pill or whatever, however, there's vaginal inserts, there's various ways that they deliver it so that it can help replace the hormones that you were making naturally, but natural not being necessarily that you're taking something you get at the GNC, which by the way, you're not sure what you're getting when you get it at the health food store because that is not regulated.
There's a lot of snake oil salesmen at the supplement stores. I'll just say that. And I fall victim to it constantly. Okay. I have been a fan of every trending supplement out there, and sometimes it's to my own demise. Okay. Like I'll say that I fall for it every time, but this is why we want to have these conversations. Right. And, just going back to the very title of this chat we're having, why do you think, Karen, that this conversation has been so lacking? Why do you think we're not doing this? We are women. We are, isn't there a sisterhood? Isn't this something, don't we look out for each other? Why are we not having this conversation? I know we are now.
Right.
But this is, our modern world. Why have we gone this long not talking about menopause?
Well, if you look at who's in charge of most medical research of most countries, middle-aged white men are not worried about menopause. And so as we become louder and more important, and as there's more and more money in women going through menopause, then all of a sudden the conversation is getting louder, but it's still not loud enough. And Joe Biden helped the president, contributed to an initiative to put lots of money into women's health research, but still we're just so lagging. And the other problem is that this women's health initiative that there's a lot of things that were wrong with the study, but basically I remember my mother was on Premarin, which was the hormone they gave from like the 1960s or 70s. From the minute that study came out, like women just stopped their hormone therapy and the doctors stopped prescribing it. And a lot of doctors who are not keeping up on the latest research just continue to tell the same story. I mean, I've heard women say, my doctor said hormone therapy is not a thing. Oh, you don't need sex. You'll get over it. Or
you'll get over it.
Or just tough it out. Like women, we're supposed to tough it out.
Tough it out. We have a question here in the chat. Do you have any guidance on how or when someone should switch from hormonal birth control to HRT as a preventative measure?
I cannot answer that because I'm not a licensed medical provider. I do know that some doctors do prescribe a birth control pill as a when you have like very heavy periods or something as a result of the hormonal fluctuations. I honestly don't know, but again, it would have to be if you're symptomatic in different ways, your body's changing, and it's not hormone therapy does not prevent pregnancy. And as long as you're still getting a period, even if it's once every 11 months, you can still get pregnant. So I guess there's weighing the pros and cons, and maybe there's a supplementation that can be done with birth control pills. I don't know the answer.
And I was going to ask about fertility in particular. I mean, we see especially a lot of the Hollywood crew, a lot of women in Hollywood. I think of Brigitte Nielsen. She had a baby at what? Someone do the Google search on Brigitte Nielsen. I'm pretty sure it was into her 50s.
Wasn't Gwen Stefani pregnant at 53?
Well, we're seeing more and more of this. We're seeing these, later in life pregnancies. My own mother was 41 when she had us. And one of the big gifts in doing this conversation is that those of you who do or do not know, I did lose my mother when I was 10. And so I don't have people to talk to about this. Now I do. Now I have Karen, okay? Now I have Karen.
I adopted.
See, this is what I need. But fertility, how is it impacted? Like, how much is fertility impacted by the onset of even perimenopause?
So the only thing I can say is that you can still get pregnant.
Yes.
As you age, your eggs aren't as healthy. And I would venture to guess that most women who have, who get pregnant later in life probably did it using some sort of, whether the egg was fertilized outside the womb and then put back, it was probably not their eggs. I remember asking my doctor about it. A friend of mine thought that because she was in perimenopause, she wouldn't get pregnant. And so she got pregnant and her husband were dealing with that. And she said, well, it probably wouldn't have been a viable pregnancy. It may have been, it's possible. I mean, again, I don't know. But chances are that, women are having babies later. It gets harder to have them. And there are more and more complications. And of course, I think it's like over 35, you're considered I hate to use this word, but geriatric pregnancy.
Geriatric pregnancy is anything after 35.
I don't know if that's true.
Goodness.
Please check
My goodness.
I've heard someone say that to me. I don't want to be quoted as the woman that said
no.
A baby over
that's we will definitely deep dive into it. Something that I dwell on as I think about, approaching perimenopause and eventually menopause, I worry about how my own relationship to self may change, sex and sexuality and fertility, even though I don't have children, nor do I necessarily know if I want children. And I'd be looking at a geriatric pregnancy anyways, but that system that I live with, the one that says every, how many weeks is that? Sometimes mine's on and off.
Oh, I don't remember.
I get a period, sometimes it syncs up with the moon. Sometimes it syncs up with an emotional moment and I feel very connected to myself. So what is the emotional solo experience of going through menopause? I mean, what are you tragic? Are you ashamed? Are you absolutely gutted? What's the ride like?
I think it really depends on, I think the sad news is that probably there are many women that feel that way. And that's probably also a result of what society is telling us we're supposed to feel. Well, you're old and you're washed up because you can't have babies anymore.
There you go.
So I will, and I hope I'm going to get this right, but I know I've read a lot about it. We evolved to live longer, to be able to take care of the women that are having babies. And there's some in our evolution, there's some real reason that women lived beyond being able to have babies, because that was originally why we were on Earth, right? To make more babies. And then,
Ooh, so maybe it's not our sole purpose, you're saying.
Yes. And I think it has a lot to do with, this learning to feel good about yourself. I mean, body image, our body image has to change about ourselves because, you start to gain what they call visceral fat, and like your skin starts to sag, all these things that, especially those of you that are in a very visual industry, it's like, okay, I've got to change, this is not what you see is not me. This interior is me. And the fact that I'm reproductive, able to have a baby or not, doesn't change who this is. And it's really that's the internal work. But I think it's like a lot of parents, when their kids leave the house, start to feel like they have no purpose anymore. And that's not true. I mean,
I want more art from menopausal women.
Okay, look at
I want more.
I don't know if this is menopausal or not, but this is a clitoris. For those of you, I don't know if you can see it's a clitoris necklace. These are ovaries or uterus, and this is a vulva.
And Karen and I will never actually share a hotel room because these things will go missing. They will go missing so fast.
Get for Christmas.
But I'm very interested in, yes, this emotional journey of it. Someone in the chat just said the ride for me has been horrible so far, but has coincided with significant burnout and deciding to be clean. I'm literally drawing right now. I want more menopause art, I've decided.
I mean, whatever your outlet is, right? Whether it's art, it's music, it's dance, it's yoga, it's sex,
to get an understanding of that headspace.
Yes.
I don't know. I guess I fear entering into one of those dismal headspaces. And yes, society has just told us over and over again, even in a show that has been quote unquote liberating, like Sex and the City, the episode where Samantha fears she's going into menopause, she's practically on a death march. She's looking at it like it's her funeral, and the relief of getting her period. I mean, all of that informs me that this is something to fear. This is something to really worry about, because life ends at this point, and I refuse to believe that.
Well, I will go back to, you're reminding me of some other research that was done in addition to what Lisa Mosconi found in the brain scans. Cosmo and the Kinsey Institute did a study and found that women over 60 are having the best sex of their lives. So I think, we all have our challenges that they seem to all coincide with midlife. You've got, burnout from work or career. You may have your children leaving home. You may be going through a relationship change. You've been with the same person for, women are leaving their spouses, more than men these days, because we're feeling stronger, but that presents financial challenges and all sorts of other challenges. And then, oh, by the way, I'm having a hot flash. I can't sleep. My vagina's dry. And, all these things are happening. So it makes sense that it could be a hellish time. And it's just a question of finding community, which is something that's really important to me, putting women together to talk. One of the greatest moments of this, I only started doing this work a little over a year ago, and I had an in-person event. Remember those? It was about 20 women, varying ages, I'd say from probably their 50s to their 70s, all talking. And at the end of it, one of the women came up to me and she said, I said things and learned things today that I don't even talk to my sister about. And that was the most rewarding thing, because we need to, people talk about community after COVID, but as women going through this, you are not alone. Right. You are not crazy. There is no normal. There's what I love. I heard Justin Lehmiller say that it could be common, but normal is normal for you.
Yeah.
And things are changing, and my dad used to say, I hate this quote, but I love this quote. It's better than the alternative. So you are going to live through this period, but you'll get through it. And if, find the right resources, do your research. You don't have to live miserable. You might have miserable periods, periods meaning time periods, but you don't have to live in this horrible state. You don't have to suffer just because somebody did some research and interpreted it wrong. You don't have to suffer because your partner or your husband, your kids are saying, oh, you need to do this naturally. You don't have to suffer because that's what society tells you you're supposed to do. Because guess what? It's changing. We are not suffering anymore. Right. We are living and we are enjoying. And that is this can be the best time of your life. You just have to embrace it that way and not fear it.
And what about happy couplings that are entering this stage? And the woman going through it wants to communicate to her partner, I need a little more compassion in this department. I need changes to sex that look like this. I need this kind of whatever it might be, treatment, interaction, whatever it is. How do you advise handling those conversations?
Well, I think first thing is having them, which can be, and even today for me, when I get a new relationship, sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about what my challenges are. I mean, I think it starts with where you want to be in your relationship. I think it's if you really want to remain with your partner, if you love your partner, if you're devoted to your partner, and this is important to you, then this is something you want to go through with them. And I think a lot of times men feel isolated and they don't know what to do. And by saying, I was just listening to this YouTube live or this podcast, or my doctor was just recommending, like, how I've been such a bitch lately, or how like my vagina is really dry, but I really wish you'd go down there more often. I just have to find, I'm going to have to put this yucky cream in my vagina 2 times a week. But like, it'll mean that when we do get intimate, it'll be better. It's starting with like a little conversation about something, how much I love you, how much I want to be with you. And if those things are just like, there is no fucking way I'm having that conversation with my husband, he's going to just like laugh me out of the room. I mean, there's some amazing resources. There's sex therapists. Like we're at a conference with full of sex therapists.
All sex therapists here.
And, a good sex therapist, it's not about getting you naked and telling you now do it. It's really, it's a lot about helping you communicate. And then there's little tricks. I'm just remembering there's an episode I have, and I don't know if I have the episode number, with Dr. Batsheva Marcus. I loved, she was actually my sex therapist, and I love to call her, she's like a little Dr. Ruth, but she talks about like, people say scheduling sex. She says scheduling, not sex, like finding things to do. Today I was mentioning something I'd heard about sexual snacking, kind of being doing little intimate things with your partner that will bring you closer together. Forget about the intercourse, forget about all that stuff. Just find ways to be more intimate with each other and connected with each other. And then the conversation becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Stay connected in those ways. The snacking of it. We have a comment here that says, I taught my husband to joke with me about my symptoms, and that helps so much. Well, comedy.
Playfulness.
Playfulness.
Yep.
Take the pressure off of
fantasy.
Fantasy.
Just say, what was someone was mentioning? I've heard this often.
What, like I've been through the desert. And now I'm taking it to like serious role play.
Well, we
fantasy. I take it serious role play, y'all. That's just what I do.
There's and I think you can probably find some of these online. If your relationship is at a decent place, and for the person that was talking about, having the playfulness, that's a great place to be, doing a yes, no, maybe list, where you literally both list, you have to promise each other that there's no judgment. Like if I say I want to, run naked in front of, 100,000 people,
no judgment.
And you'd say like, yes, it's okay for you to do that. No, that's not, like, maybe I have to think about it, but it starts to bring conversations. There's also, I know Esther Perel, and I've met a couple people who do these like playing cards. That
where do we start? Where should we begin?
Where should we begin is her stuff. But I just met someone, I forget the name of it, that's doing there's a lot of these toys, reading erotica to each other, ethical porn. That may be a little extreme for some people, but just trying little things that bring you back to maybe where you started. Yeah. There was a reason you fell in love with this person. Yeah. And maybe it's opening it up. Like I talk about, I have an episode I call Can Consensual Non-Monogamy Save Your Marriage? And again, there's many people have varying opinions about it, but sometimes just talking about it, entertaining the idea of something different brings you back, because then you start to say, well, had you ever thought about it? Well, I don't know. You ever thought about it? Or it's a no way, but then you kind of percolate and go, remember we were talking about that? Yeah. And even just talking about it and learning more about it can open up the relationship. Reading books together, explaining, it's not that I don't like you, it's that I don't like this feeling that I have in my body.
Taking that time to each teach each other something as well. I mean, it can bring you back, like you said, to those initial feelings of why you fell in love in the first place. Right. And oh my gosh, what an exciting thing if you were to permit yourself to talk about sex with your partner in this way. Oh my gosh, you can do it, people. You really can. Karen, did you want to read something for us from?
No, I just wanted to give there's so much misinformation about, and what did I do? I had the statements in front of me. So much misinformation about hormone replacement therapy. I just wanted to read the 2022 North American Menopause Society statement on hormone therapy. Is now women younger than 60 within 10 years that are symptomatic. The benefits of hormone therapy outweigh the risks. So just keep that, as my dad used to say, I know it's not politically correct anymore, but put that in your pipe and smoke it. And the other piece of information, which I want to say, is that in 2020, the American Heart Association, which, by the way, heart disease is the number one killer of women, not breast cancer and heart disease, and has said that menopause increases the risk of cardiovascular events. And so treating menopause is really, really important. And finally, that the FDA now approves hormone therapy for estrogen and progesterone, does approve it, which is, you can, if you have good insurance, you can get it covered. So, take care of yourself. Your menopause, unfortunately, like we get the short end of the stick on all these things contribute to our cardiovascular decline, our Alzheimer's, dementia, bone loss, all these vaginal things. And I want to add one more
please,
thing
Karen,
that I did not talk about, which is topical estrogen, which is there's now this huge movement to get rid of all the warnings in the box, because most, if not all, medical providers and all the research shows that there's absolutely no risk of putting topical estrogen on your vulva, vagina. And it helps with not only the dryness, it helps with urinary frequency, urinary tract infections, which is another killer of women. You're not knowing you have a urinary tract infection. So there's so many reasons to get proper treatment for this. And on the sex side, like, your sex life is not over, and it's just different.
It's just different. But what a joy to have something change in that department, right? Like, it should be an area that is constantly evolving.
Because we are constantly evolving.
We are constantly evolving. Exactly. I'm really grateful that we had the chance to do this today. And do you have some final thoughts for us?
Yeah. If you want more specific from my information, I have a couple of episodes. One on, I'm just going to give you a number. Episode 55 is on hormone replacement therapy. 59 on testosterone specifically. I have in my first or second season an interview with Dr. Alyssa Dweck that gets more into the medical explanations and for women, and Dr. Mohit Kara for men. So we talk about all sorts of different male challenges. And then just from what I've got coming up on Tuesday next week, I'm doing a virtual event that's going to focus more on the sex side of women and aging. So that's 9:00 Pacific, 12:00 Eastern, and you can register for that at my website. I also have, if you want to get on, I'll be starting up a newsletter and doing more events coming in the fall. On my website, I have a pleasure playbook that you can download if you put in your email address, and that just gives you some tips to like spice things up in the bedroom. So that's a lot of fun. And my podcast is wherever you find your favorite podcast. And I am so grateful to you for having me here.
Karen, so on the website, the podcast info is there as well, right?
Yes, it's called Taboo to Truth: Unapologetic Conversations About Sexuality in Midlife. It's a mouthful, but and my tagline is, grab your favorite drink and put me on speaker. It's time we broke the silence.
And the website to find out more information about you?
TabooToTruth.com.
Fabulous. Hey, well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. I mean, this was a return to YouTube Live. I guess we'll have to be doing some more of them, and hopefully getting some wonderful experts to join me. And please keep the conversation going in the chat, in the comments. I'm going to continue watching. If you want to get in touch with Karen and you have further questions for Karen, please drop them there. I'm going to make sure all of our social media handles are in there for you as well. But thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope this was informative. I hope this was helpful. You can find me all things at thelauradesiree.com. And we'll see you next time. Bye.